My name is Ava. I am 16 years old. I live in a small town with my mother and her husband. His name is Mark. Many years ago, my real father died in a car accident. I was only 6 years old. I still remember his warm smile. Every Sunday, he took me to the park. We fed birds together, and he always bought me a chocolate ice cream. He used to say, Ava, life can be hard, but your heart should always stay kind. Those words stayed with me. After he died, everything changed. For a long time, my mother cried every night. Then, one day, she met Mark. At first, Mark acted like a nice man. He smiled often and bought flowers for my mother. Everyone thought he was kind. But after they got married, his real face appeared. He became angry over small things. If dinner was late, he shouted. If a glass broke, he threw things across the room. The happy house I once knew slowly became a place filled with fear. I tried to stay quiet. I stayed in my room after school. I spent hours reading books because books were the only place where I felt safe. One rainy evening, I sat on my bed reading an old adventure novel. Suddenly, someone knocked. Before I could answer, the door opened. Mark walked inside. He looked around my room without saying anything. Then he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It made my stomach hurt. He stepped closer. You spend too much time alone, he said quietly. I felt nervous. I like reading, I answered. He laughed. You should learn to listen to adults. He moved even closer. My hands started shaking. I quickly stood up and walked past him. I need to help Mom, I said. Without waiting for an answer, I hurried downstairs. My heart was beating fast. My mother was washing dishes. I wanted to tell her everything. Mom. She looked at me. What is it? I don't feel comfortable around Mark. She sighed. Ava, you're imagining things again. No, I'm not. He only wants us to be a family. I looked at her in surprise. You don't understand. She turned back to the sink. I don't want another argument. That sentence hurt more than I expected. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask what happened. She simply ended the conversation. That night, I locked my bedroom door. I pushed my chair against it. Only then could I sleep. The next morning, I went to school with dark circles under my eyes. My best subject was English, but I couldn't focus. My teacher, Mrs. Green, noticed me. Ava, would you stay after class? I nodded. When everyone left, She smiled kindly. You've been very quiet lately. I'm fine. She didn't believe me. Sometimes people say they're fine when they really need help. I looked at the floor. Nobody had ever said that to me before. For a moment, I wanted to tell her everything. But fear stopped me. I just didn't sleep well, I whispered. She gently placed a notebook on my desk. If you ever don't want to talk, you can write. I thanked her and left. The notebook stayed in my backpack all day. That evening, Mark was already angry. He complained about the food. He shouted at my mother. She stayed silent. I wanted to help her, but I knew it would only make things worse. After dinner, I went outside and sat on the front steps. The sky was full of stars. I remembered my father. I wished he were still alive. I whispered into the night. Dad, I don't know what to do. A cool wind touched my face. For a moment, it felt like someone was listening. The days became harder. Mark watched everything I did. He criticized my clothes. He complained about my grades even though they were good. Nothing I did was ever enough. One afternoon, I came home early because one of my teachers was sick. The house was quiet. I thought nobody was home. As I walked upstairs, I heard voices. It was my mother and Mark. They were arguing. I don't like how you treat Ava, my mother said softly. Mark answered in a cold voice. She's lazy. She's just a child. You always defend her. I stood still. For the first time, I realized something. Maybe my mother wasn't as strong as I thought. Maybe she was afraid too. Before I could hear more, the floor made a small sound beneath my feet. The voices stopped. I quickly ran to my room. A few seconds later, Mark knocked on my door. I didn't answer. After a long silence, he walked away. That night, I finally opened Mrs. Green's notebook. On the first page I wrote, Dear Dad, I miss you every day. Sometimes I feel invisible. Sometimes I feel scared. I don't know if anyone believes me, but I promise I will never stop hoping. Love, Ava. I closed the notebook. Somehow, writing made my heart feel lighter. A week later, something unexpected happened. During lunch break, Mrs. Green sat beside me. She gave me a small paper bird made from white paper. My grandmother taught me this, she said. What does it mean? When life feels heavy, remember that birds always find the sky. I smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. I kept the paper bird inside my notebook. Days passed. One Saturday afternoon, Mark became angry because I accidentally dropped a plate. It didn't even break. But he shouted so loudly that the neighbors could hear him. I ran upstairs. My hands were shaking. A few minutes later, someone knocked on the front door. A neighbor had called for help after hearing the shouting. Two women entered the house. One introduced herself. "Hello, my name is Ms. Carter. We work with Child Protection Services." She spoke calmly. She asked if she could talk to me alone. Mark looked unhappy. My mother looked nervous. We sat in the living room. Ms. Carter smiled gently. "Ava, you can tell me the truth." For the first time. I did. I told her about the shouting, the fear, the sleepless nights, the way I always felt unsafe. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, tears filled my eyes. She handed me a tissue. "You were very brave today." Nobody had ever called me brave before. The next morning, Miss Carter returned. She carried a small blue folder. "Ava," as she said kindly, "we found a temporary place where you'll be safe." I looked at my mother. She began to cry. "I never wanted this," as she whispered. I didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, love. They were all mixed together. "You should pack a few things," Ms. Carter said. I walked upstairs slowly. I packed only what mattered. 3 books. My father's old watch. The paper bird from Mrs. Green. The notebook. 2 sweaters. 1 family photo from many years ago. Nothing else felt important. Before leaving, I looked around my room. The walls were the same. The window was the same. But I wasn't the same girl anymore. I picked up my backpack. As I walked toward the front door, my mother quietly said, "I'm sorry." I looked at her. I wanted to answer, but no words came. I simply nodded. Then I stepped outside. The fresh air touched my face. For the first time in many months, I wasn't walking away from home. I was walking toward a chance to begin again. Miss Carter opened the car door. I took one last look at the house. Then I got inside. The car slowly drove away. I didn't know where my next home would be. I didn't know who I would meet. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But deep inside my heart, a tiny spark of hope had finally begun to shine. The car drove for almost an hour. I looked out of the window the whole time. The streets became quieter. The tall buildings disappeared. Soon we stopped in front of a large white house with blue windows. It did not look like a shelter. It looked like an old school. A colorful garden stood in front of the building. Yellow flowers moved gently in the wind. Children's laughter came from the backyard. Ms. Carter smiled. "This is Sunrise House." I took a deep breath. "It is not forever," as she said. "It is only a place where you can feel safe while we help you build a better future." I slowly nodded. Inside the house, everything smelled like fresh bread. The walls were painted with bright colors. Children's drawings covered almost every hallway. A woman wearing glasses walked toward us. She smiled warmly. "Welcome, Ava. My name is Mrs. Wilson. I take care of everyone here." Her voice reminded me of my grandmother. Soft, calm, kind. She showed me around the house. There was a library, a music room, a small art room, even a little garden where children could grow flowers. I could hardly believe it. Mrs. Wilson opened a bedroom door. "This room is yours." There were 2 beds. One bed was empty. The other belonged to another girl. She looked about my age. She was painting a butterfly in a notebook. She looked up and smiled. "Hi. My name is Nora. I'm Ava." She closed her notebook. "You look nervous." "I am." She laughed softly. "I was nervous too." "Don't worry. Everyone here understands." For the first time in many months, I believed someone. That evening we all ate dinner together. There were 10 children sitting around one big table. Some laughed loudly. Some stayed quiet. Everyone had a different story. Nobody asked difficult questions. Nobody judged anyone. Mrs. Wilson simply said, "Tonight we are happy because our family became one person bigger." Everyone clapped. I felt my face become warm. Nobody had welcomed me like that before. The next morning Nora knocked on my bed. "Wake up. We're going to school together." We walked side by side. On the way, she told me her story. My parents argued every day. One day they both left. My grandmother became sick. So I came here. "I'm sorry," I said. She smiled. "It still hurts. But it hurts less now." I understood exactly what she meant. School was different this time. Mrs. Green was waiting outside her classroom. When she saw me, she smiled. "I'm so happy you're back." She hugged me gently. I was worried. "I missed school," I admitted. I missed you too. That day I answered questions in class again. I even smiled during English lesson. It felt strange, but good. Every evening Mrs. Wilson encouraged us to write. You don't have to hide your feelings, as she said. Words can help hearts heal. So every night I opened my notebook. Sometimes I wrote about my father. Sometimes about my fears. Sometimes about my dreams. Little by little, the pages became brighter. One Saturday everyone worked in the garden. Nora planted flowers. I helped paint old wooden benches. A little boy named Ben accidentally spilled blue paint all over my shoes. He looked terrified. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. For a second I remembered Mark shouting over every small mistake. Then I smiled. It's okay. They're only shoes. Ben smiled with relief. That moment taught me something. Kindness is stronger than fear. Weeks became months. Autumn arrived. Orange leaves covered the ground. Life slowly became peaceful. One afternoon Mrs. Wilson called me into her office. There is someone who wants to see you. My heart started beating faster. Who? Your mother. I stayed silent. Part of me wanted to leave. Another part wanted answers. Mrs. Wilson gently asked, You don't have to meet her if you aren't ready. I thought for a long time. Finally, I whispered, I'll see her. My mother was sitting quietly in the visiting room. She looked different. Her face seemed older. When she saw me, she stood up. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, You've grown. I looked at her. So have you. Tears filled her eyes. I made terrible mistakes. I should have protected you. I was afraid. I kept telling myself everything would get better. But I was wrong. I listened quietly. She continued. After you left, I finally found the courage to leave Mark. He cannot hurt us anymore. I was surprised. She placed a small box on the table. I found this while cleaning. Inside the box was my father's old fountain pen. I smiled through my tears. I thought it was lost. So did I. She looked down. I don't expect forgiveness today. I only wanted you to know. I never stopped loving you. I thought about everything. The fear. The loneliness. The broken trust. Those things could not disappear in one day. But anger no longer controlled my heart. I need time, I said honestly. She nodded. I'll wait. Before leaving, she asked, May I hug you? I hesitated. Then I slowly stepped forward. The hug was short, awkward, quiet, but it was real. Winter came. Snow covered the garden. One evening, Mrs. Green invited several students to join a young writers' competition. You should enter, as she told me. I've never written stories. You've lived one. Her words stayed with me. That night I began writing. Not about sadness. Not about fear. I wrote about hope. About finding light after darkness. About believing tomorrow can be better than today. Months later, the results arrived. I didn't win first place. I won second. But none of that mattered. When Mrs. Green handed me the certificate, she smiled proudly. You found your voice. I looked at the paper. For the first time, I believed her. Spring returned. The flowers in Sunrise House bloomed again. One afternoon, Mrs. Wilson gathered everyone together. She smiled at me. Ava has wonderful news. I stood up nervously. I've been accepted into a youth writing program. Everyone cheered. Nora hugged me tightly. I knew you could do it. I laughed. So did you. That evening I walked into the garden alone. The sun was setting. The sky turned orange and pink. I opened my notebook one last time. I wrote, Dear Dad, life became very difficult after you left. Sometimes I thought I would never smile again. But good people found me. They taught me that family is not only the people we are born with. Family is also the people who protect us. The people who believe us. The people who help us become brave. I still miss you every day. But I think you will be proud of me now. I am no longer afraid. I am learning. I am healing. And I am finally happy. Love always. Ava. I closed the notebook. A soft wind moved through the trees. For a moment, it felt as if my father was smiling somewhere above the clouds. I looked toward Sunrise House. Children were laughing. Mrs. Wilson was watering flowers. Nora waved at me from the porch. I waved back with a smile. This place had once been only a temporary home. Now it had become the place where I found myself. My past would always be part of me, but it would never decide my future. Because hope is stronger than fear, and every new morning brings another chance to begin again. The end.